Knives. A thing I'm known for is basically recommending knives as a, if there's nothing else you can carry, a pointed object is probably a pretty good idea to know how to fabricate, source, or access and have with you. All of these knives right here are actually based on this guy right here. This was my mom's personal carry knife. Finger divot that she actually ground herself, curved blade. There's no locking feature on this knife, so she had a tendency to always use it against the weight open basically for it not to close in on her hand. And this knife went through a lot. I have a story about my mom actually using this on somebody. This is the exact knife that she was carrying back then. I'm not too sure about the history of the knife. It's probably a pruning knife or something like that. It's probably European in nature. But this is where my fascination about carrying knives and actually utilizing knives came from. And the design inspired probably one of the most popular tactical knives that is currently on the market, in the form of the Elvia design, which is actually named after my mom, Elvia. There's a few things about the design that I want to explain for people that might not know about these. They're very much a utilitarian knife, so I figured I'd do this video. I'm going to go into some of the preferences as well, but specifically, I'm going to go into the basics of what I look for in knives. I'm not going to nerd out too much talking about steels, but specifically about shapes, ways to hold the knife, and also some of the options out there for people, and a little bit about the history of these guys. So, hope you enjoy. So this is actually the first Emerson folder prototype. Running joke I have with Mr. Emerson, the only way I could get a custom knife from him was basically to sell him on making a design for me. I've been into a few of his lotteries that he does at Blade Show and stuff like that. Probably 8 of them. I've never won a single one. But this is the actual one of the first prototypes that he made for the Elvia knife. As you can see, the design of it and how you hold it. A lot of people look at this and automatically say that's a reverse knife. That's for Pikal and all of these things. Well, it's actually more of a utilitarian knife, and if you can see the way it kind of fits in your hand, it's not really meant for fighting when holding a forward grip. It's actually more of a whittling, processing, cutting, making holes knife. At least that's how my mom used to use hers. A big thing about the one that my mom used to carry is it's kind of, you can see how it flares out on the top, tapers down at the bottom. Now, what is this guy for? Well, mother used to tell me she would grind an angle onto things like this so she can have a better idea about where the edge would be on a knife. I mean, she actually did this to a lot of her knives, or carry knives, knives that she used a lot, and it was specifically for her to know where the edge was without actually looking at the blade. Now, in a combat setting, you can see how that might be, beneficial. But specifically, this little finger divot was always meant for orientation, and it was something that she actually came up with and put into some of the stuff that she would carry. With the Emerson, you can see the same kind of thing applies. Also notice that this guy goes in any grip that you would want, either for processing, cutting open a box in a public space and you don't want anybody to see you, and actually perfectly kind of forms your hand so you can use it discreetly in an urban environment or an open environment to cut open a box. Size-wise, shape-wise, you can see how some of the influences came from this to turn it into this. The first person that ever actually made this into a knife for me, like I gave the design specs and drawings to, was Tractor Dan. So he was the one that made the first one of these for me. And this was actually the first shape he cut out to kind of see if it worked. You can see a few design features on his that most of the others didn't, was this little hole. Now, this little hole, a lot of people were like, what do you do, what's that hole for? My whole thinking behind that hole was to be able to have just a place where you can perch your thumb and your index finger so you can do whittling and do more specific cuts or more precise cutting with it. If you were using it more of a small tool for manufacturing, making stuff, whittling, and that type of thing. Tracker Dan is very much a survival-oriented guy, so he kind of dug that little aspect of it. So in his, this was basically the testing of the shape, which turned into this one, which is the first one he made for me. This guy, this one was the first one he made out of steel, I think. So it's the very first Elvia that he made. His wrapping is just, you know, phenomenal. So legit, it's probably one of my favorite versions of this. Sheathing system, any way you want it, which is amazing. And I'll get a lot of questions about clips. There's a few companies out there making this clip basically that are not Tracker Dan. I personally carry all of my stuff that I have for my personal use is all of his clips. I've tested out all of them. They have different tolerances as far as the other brands out there, but in my opinion, Dan makes the best version of it, and he's the one that actually came up with it, and I really, really like these, and I put them on my personal stuff mostly. Eric Kramer from Kramer Custom Knives actually made another version of it later on. This guy is one of the first ones he made. It's pretty easy, pretty small. Smaller than the regular ones. Again, I wanted to get back to basics and make it really small, to conceal in your hand, to be able to utilize in public without freaking people out. And also, the smaller the knife, the harder it is for somebody to take it away from you in a combat setting. So, you know, again, these are just forms and evolutions of it, have been kind of like slowly kind of influencing some of the design features, and also each maker kind of put some of them into the designs. This final one is basically the version that Turner LLC made. More of a utilitarian functional knife that he made, beefy, bomb-proof, tested to tip out, not only on pigs, because we do these organic medium classes where we actually stress test all of the knives on thicker bone structures on the animal, stabbing and ripping it down, actually putting plate armor on it and stuff like that, for no other reason than to just verify that some of these design features are viable, that it will withstand multiple stabs into dense objects. And people say, well, just don't stab anything hard, focus on the soft stuff. You might not get the option. Don't use your knife as a pry bar. People that say that have never been in a place where they had nothing else and they need to use whatever they have on hand. So I really like, if I'm going to carry something, I want it to fit a bunch of rolls. A lot of people freak out with the shape and they say, well, this just feels weird in this shape. Well, if you want to peel somebody off you, if you want to stab somebody, all of this works. Sometimes it gets compared to karambit. Karambits have absolutely nothing to do with this. If anything, this is more of a pruning knife or a carpet knife, if you want to even go that length. It's utilitarian in origin, and it goes to the adage that my mom used to say about knives. Knives need to be a tool of creation first, destruction comes later. So it is very much a utilitarian blade. It's designed for that. Again, multiple ways of holding it, using gravity for your advantage if you're processing an animal, dropping it down with both hands if you have to kind of force a cut down, being able to brace the top of it if you're doing something fine, being able to pinch it if you want to whittle with it, holding it in reverse grip with your index in more of a stabby, murdery type scenario. Again, Turner LLC made a brilliant design choice with these handles because they're basically switchable handle scales. You can use a penny to change them out, and you can carry a bunch of stuff in here for emergencies. You know, it's just a cool all-around thing. My favorite sheath ever is this leather one. Ed, why leather over Kydex? Well, Kydex, leather. It's a sound feature. I mean, if you want to really be a ninja, leather is the quietest. It's also form fits a lot more when you're actually wearing the blade on you, and the profile is undeniable as far as how low profile these can get. This sheath was actually made for me by a guy on Instagram, Jer Hooligan. You can check him out there. I'll actually tag him in the description of the video so you guys can maybe get some custom jobs from him. He makes everything by hand. It's actually wire stitch. This is, you know, pretty amazing sheathing system. So again, with all of these versions of this knife, main design features, and I know a lot of people are making their own versions of this now and kind of claiming it's their own and stuff like that. It's great. I really don't care. Main design features that are proprietary to this design or proprietary to some of the ways my mom would carry knives. Finger divot, curved handle, and curved knife. Basically, this curve mirrors the back curve. So it's basically like a perfect mirroring of these both curves. Designed for it to kind of fit into a hand that is forward facing, and when it's in reverse, the blade, because the blade basically kind of tucks back into itself like a cockfighting spur. These are some of the design features. I mean, and again, a big part of knives for me is the sheath. So if you notice, I like deep sheaths on these and clips. I like clips because usually these will actually go stuffed in my pants, and I'll show you exactly how I would carry something like this in a bit.